Well, so thank you all for joining. And as we were studying the about Genesis and about the origin of this universe, this earth, and we as human beings. Okay, so we looked at different views. I think prior to last class we spoke about progressive creation, and in the last class we studied about the gap theory. So, as part of the gap theory, we see that there is a gap between Genesis 1 verse 1 and 1 verse 2. Okay, that's and it's also called as the ruin restoration theory, where God created the heavens and the earth as part of Genesis 1 verse 1, and then the earth laid void for a long period of time, and thereafter God recreates or refurbishes the earth in 24 hours days. Okay. The reason why the earth remains void is because the earth was inhabited by Lucifer and seraphims who rebelled against God, who made a pomp of their life, and the wrath of God came upon them, and the earth became a desolate place. In fact, it remained void. So that's in a nutshell what gap theory is. You can always listen to my previous class for details. So moving on, one of the questions that was raised was why I was more inclined towards progressive creation and not towards gap theory. So here is the thing, so gap theory was very attractive till the late 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, because gap theory helped a lot of people, especially the theologians, to answer the questions pertaining to Genesis chapter 1. But as in the late 20th century, we see that there is a huge development in terms with regards to science. We've developed very strong and robust telescopes whereby we can look into the space. So with the coming of cosmology, geology, biology, chemistry, physics, we have more the science, or rather progressive creations become more relevant in that sense. But again, the challenge here is, or rather the question is, why I prefer progressive creation is because, see, it all depends upon who you are asking this question. Okay, if you ask a theologian will always give you gap theory. Okay, the reason why a theologian is able to give you gap theory is because he has the freedom, or he can leverage extra biblical sources to support what he is telling. Okay, but that is not the case for an apologist. For an apologist, his point, his source of truth, as we discussed on the first day of our class, is that what are the source of truth for an apologist? It is one, it should be logical, it should be reasonable, it should be evidence based, it should have empirical relevance according to. So all of these factors are the key source of truth for an apologist. Which means if an apologist has to talk about extra biblical sources, he will have to first prove that extra biblical to be true and relevant and accurate, and then go to prove the theories. So that is the key reason why you will see apologists always talking about progressive creation rather than gap theory, and theologians talking about gap theory, because they have that freedom to deep dive into extra biblical sources to support their statements. But for an apologist, science or the physics becomes the strongest proof of evidence that he can quote to make his point. So that's the reason. And the other one more thing that I observe is that the question about how the sun appears on day 4 is not something that can easily explain, because it leads to some challenging questions if you follow the gap theory, which means the sun, the earth, is like you in a gap theory. You're saying that the earth is 4.6 billion years old, and the sun came on the 4th day, so sun is pretty like 6,000 years old. And we know that that's not the case. That's not the truth. Today science believes, or we know for sure, that the earth and the sun are around the same time. So the question about how do you answer why the sun came on the 4th day is something that is not very strongly answerable as part of the gap theory. So keeping all of these things, see, I know that we have the freedom to believe any of the point of view, and that's absolutely okay, as long as we give importance to God and we acknowledge God being the source, God being the designer. I am absolutely fine. But let's say somebody forgot about an atheist, but if your children, of our children, ask us this question, see, we don't want to force them to say, okay, no, this is how it is, but we should be able to give a more reasonable, calculative answers for them. If we force them to believe what we are telling them, they will believe that in front of us, but outside, they go out and they will not, they will not accept that. And that's what we are seeing today. What we have seen today in the churches, especially the English churches, and even including Malayalam churches, where the kids have they don't believe all of this to be true, because we were not able to give them a reasonable answer. So that's my view on the key between the progressive creation and the gap theory. Why I am more inclined towards gap theory, progressive creation. Anything to add or want to clarify before I move on to what I plan to cover today? So I assume there is none. So okay, now moving on to today's class. This is a foundational class of apologetics. I don't want to go too much deep into things, but at the same time I want to address any questions that y'all have. I'm hoping to close this series by next week, and then get into the world religion series, and hoping to close everything in the next 4 to 5 weeks. And then if there are any questions anybody has, we can answer those questions. I see Annie Auntie on the call, so I'm not sure, Annie Auntie, were you able to listen to my I just mentioned about why I am inclined more towards the progressive creation and not the gap theory. Were you able to hear?
I just joined, Shivu, so I missed the earlier.
Okay.
Because we're just on our road now, so I kind of missed what you said earlier.
Okay. All right.
That's
Auntie.
okay. I'll listen to the recording.
All right. Okay. No problem, Auntie. Thank you. I
Okay.
mentioned about the reasons. You can listen to the recordings. If not, you can ask me next class, and I will explain
Absolutely.
to you why
Okay.
I'm more inclined to that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So now, moving on, what I want to first talk about is because we spoke about gap theory, there is a world outside our world, and we want to look more into that. So one of the questions was about Nephilims. Okay, who are these Nephilims? And because Bible does talk about in Genesis 6 verse 4 that Nephilims were on this earth then and afterwards. So who are these Nephilims? So if you Google, you should be able to find a lot of response. you will see a lot of videos on Nephilims. And one of the most prominent video, a person who explained is my Dr. Michael Fraser. And he did a very extensive study. And as part of his study, okay, he did it on a larger topic like the divine council. And as part of that, he does touch on the Nephilims. But I did a lot of study on his work, and somehow I'm not so convinced with what he is proposing, or the theory that he is proposing. So I'll stick around to what I know about Nephilims, which I have again validated with Jewish Christian theologians as to what they understand of Nephilims. Let me share my screen and then take it forward. Okay. So when we talk about Nephilims, the word Nephilims means fallen. Fallen in the sense fallen from their respective positions. So what happened was God had, when he created this earth, and when man start occupying this earth, okay, God had assigned certain angels called the sons of God, and the term is Ben Elohim. Okay, the Hebrew word is Ben Elohim. They are called the sons of God. They are a group of angels who were assigned as rulers of this earth, and their job and their task was to ensure that the powers of darkness does not exceed. So they could take the form of human body, and they could eat and act like men, and they inhabited the earth. And as I said, their role was to make sure the powers of darkness do not exceed, the fallen angels' darkness do not exceed. So they are known as Ben Elohim, sons of God. But what happened was that these angelic beings or angels, Ben Elohim, they got into a relationship with women, and they produced mighty men who were like demigods. You can call it demigods. They were mighty men. So Nephilims are, which means fallen, from the fallen state. They are Ben Elohim, sons of God, angelic beings. Their progeny is mighty men's. But the issue with that progeny is that they were just lump of flesh, okay, but with no reproductive capacity. So if they continued to live on this earth, what would have happened was that they would have inhabited the earth, and finally, because they cannot produce a progeny, the mighty men cannot produce a progeny, very soon that the human race would become extinct. So what happened was that during the Noah's flood, these mighty men were all destroyed, and Ben Elohims, or known as the Nephilims, were they were put in captivity, and they are awaiting their judgment. And we read that in the book of Jude. So this is the Hebrew, or this is the understanding of the Jewish people on the Nephilims. But again, we see that we see a Nephilim again. We read about Nephilims in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, in Deuteronomy it says that we saw Anak or Anakims and so on. So the question is, how, if God had already destroyed the mighty men and held the Ben Elohim as captives, then where did they come from? So as I said, the name Nephilim means fallen. What you read in Deuteronomy chapter 13 verse 33 is that those people, the Rephaims, Zuzim, Elims and Anakims, they were actually man-eaters, okay, and they were destroyed by Joshua. So they are not the Nephilims from Genesis 6.6 verse 4. So they are two different sets of people. One were the sons of God, the Ben Elohim, and the other ones are human beings, but they were man-eaters, and they were humongous. These guys were really huge giants, but they were man-eaters, and they were destroyed by Joshua. So that's on the Nephilim, and this is what I understand about Nephilims. There are many other explanations and theories on Nephilims, but again, as I said, Bible just gives you a clue, uh, and we do go, we deep dive into extra biblical sources to get this information. But at the same time, I want to caution you that the extra biblical information that we are talking about that comes from the Midrash, the Mishnah, there are a lot of as I've mentioned earlier, there are a lot of blind faith. The Jewish people do have a lot of blind faith, and there are a lot of things that they have got wrong. Okay, so keep that when you understand about Nephilims. Keep this in mind that yeah, it may not be 100% accurate, and there are a lot of speculations on these topics as well. Any questions? If not, I'll move on to the next one. The next one, what I want to talk about is the population of heaven. Sometimes we understand okay. So many times our perspective is very small. Okay, and what I'm going to share with you is sorry, is what we understand from the scriptures. Okay, so the population of heaven, who is there in heaven? And when I say heaven, I mean the office of our God. Okay, from the scriptures we see that there is one set of beings called the chariot bearers. Okay, and they direct God where to move. Okay, so they are creatures with eyes in and out. It is mentioned metaphorically, and that nothing is hidden from their sight. So they are called, first set of beings are called the chariot bearers, and they direct God where to move. I don't know too much about details how they operate, but we read, we see Isaiah and Apostle John getting a view of the throne room of heaven, and within the throne room of heaven we see these beings. Okay, again, what's mentioned is in most of them are metaphorical, or it is very, our understanding is very limited to get a grasp of how they look and behave, but yeah, just understand at a very high level. Okay, then the next one is the four living creatures, who are representative of the four corners of the universe. Four living creatures. Then we have the 24 elders, representative of the old and new covenant. Then we have archangels called Michael, Gabriel. We had Lucifer, and then there are other archangels like Uriel, but it is not mentioned in our Holy Scriptures, but you will find that in the extra biblical sources or the Jewish books. You will see there are other archangels. So that's why I have not put that name out here. So you have Michael, Gabriel. We have cherubs. Okay, and cherubs are like a guardian angels. Then there is seraph, which are six-winged. In the book of Isaiah, we see with two they cover their feet, two they fly, two they cover their face. So they are part of the worship team, the seraph. Okay. Then in addition to that, we have the warriors, angels. We have messengers, angels. Then we have guards, and then we have reporters. Reporters in the sense, as you see in the book of Matthew chapter 5, we see that Jesus is saying, do not call your brother useless or a fool, because if you do that, his angels who seek the face of God on a daily basis will go and report it. Right? So you read that in Matthew 5 or 6. So those are the reporting angels. Okay, so each one of us, and we also read in the Bible, in Apostle Paul saying that we have angels ministering, who are ministering to us. So we all have angels who minister to us, who seek the face of God on a daily basis. So who does the reporting to God about us? So they are the reporters. And then you have an unnumbered heavenly host. So these are the population of heaven that we see from what we get from the scripture. What I am trying to say is that the heaven is really unfathomable for our minds. We sometimes think heaven is a very small place, but no, it's a huge, humongous place. God is huge. All his setups are very, very humongous, and and they are unnumbered. Okay, and we are just created lower than the um, than the angels. And again, we see about divine counsel in Psalms 82. We hear about divine counsel. Okay, so in the divine counsel, so our God is not one who is very, who only takes decision independently. No, before God does anything, okay, He puts it before the divine council and takes everybody's, the part of whoever is in the part of the divine council's opinion and present it, and that's how our God operates. So, as part of divine council, who are there? We have the triune God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the four living creatures, the 24 elders, and then there is angelic councils in which even Satan and his fallen angels are part of the angelic council. Then you have church council, which is Jesus, apostles, and disciples. So what I'm trying to say is there are ways in which we have a glimpse. We just have a glimpse of how God is operating to in heaven. The reason I put forward this is that many times we underestimate and we have very wrong perspective about our God, and also a wrong perspective is about our God is being given. Once somebody told me, that God of Old Testament is a bloodthirsty God. So that's a very wrong. That's the image that people, and happen to be a believer who happened to say this to me. So that's the wrong image that people think. Like how I people say last week we spoke about what happened in the Garden of Eden. So we accuse many people accuse God and say, oh, just because Adam and Eve ate one fruit, so God was angry with them and threw them out of the Garden of Eden. So the God is such a mean God. So that is the image that people are trying to carry, and devil is putting that image in the mind of people. But we learned last week that's not how and what happened in the Garden of Eden, right? Because in the Garden of Eden, if God had to give them physical death, because God sees the end from the beginning, He knows that he put a solution in place where even after man is sinning, there is an opportunity for him to get right and escape. Otherwise, he will live as sinners for the rest of eternity, just like these fallen angels and Lucifer, who there is no system in place to save them. So many times we have misunderstanding about who our God is and how our God operates. Yeah. So that's being. I will also show you this particular diagram. It's drawn by somebody else, and so what it's trying to show is that you have the power world, okay, which is where we see the elders, the chariot bearers, the the various orders of angels. Okay, out of that, the Ben Elohim, this is our world, and this is the underworld, which is Hades, and you have Apollyon, which is the angel of the ruler of Hades. So all the dead people from the unbelievers, dead people from this world are held as captives in the Hades. In the Hades we also have the Ben Elohim, who is being chained and waiting for their judgment, and Apollyon is the ruler of the Hades. We also see that the fallen angels, the unholy spirits, they are operating on this earth along with the principles, powers, darkness of this world. So this is how the underworld the power world and the current world operates. And yeah, just wanted to share this with you. So, any questions before I move, or anything that you want to add? Y'all want to add? Okay, I will move on. And so, one more question. Recently Trump released a lot of documentation on UFOs. Okay, and as you know that UFOs are something that's been observed and held, especially by the US military. Recently, a lot of Trump gave the approval to release these documents. Uh, I did go through some of those things, and I wanted many people ask, does UFO exist? I remember in one of the interviews by the Indian ISRO head, he actually saying that definitely there are aliens, an extraterrestrial civilization in the world outside. Okay, from a biblical standpoint, I will say that the Bible is silent about extraterrestrial life. Okay, don't mix it with the heavenly divine being. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a civilization. Okay, so Bible is silent, but at the same time does not mean we don't know whether extraterrestrial civilization is there or not, either in this in another galaxy within this universe or outside this universe. We don't know that. The thing is that even if there is extraterrestrial life, okay, even if it is scientifically possible, it is it's not easy because of the constraint. Their visiting on this earth is highly unlikely. Even the ones that the US military, whatever they have observed, is not for sure that these are extraterrestrial civilization. It could be a possible, see, people are experiencing it, so it could be many other things. So we also know there are paranormal activities. Okay, the only thing is that as a Christian we need to be very careful. We know that the demonic activities does take place. Many times we confuse demonic activities and we assume they are like the UFOs, and they are like aliens. People tend to mistake that, and it is recommended for a Christian not to indulge much into, or not to explore this field of UFOs. Okay, Bible is silent, which means it is not meant for us to explore. We know demonic activities are there, and many times people mistake, as I said, they mistake demonic forces to be like UFOs, or to be like, sorry, aliens. Okay, so are we alone on this universe? I'm talking about extraterrestrial civilization. Bible is silent about that. We don't know, and even scientifically, it is all assumptions. Nothing is proved as such that an extraterrestrial civilization exists. Uh, any questions? Anything that you want to add or ask? Okay. So I want to take you to the next one, a big question of who made God. Okay. So this is a question that comes up many times. Many people ask this question because who created God? Because everything has a creator. We see that we all originate from, there is a cause outside of ourselves which is bringing us into existence. So if you keep going back, we have a first cause, that is God. But the question is, who created God? That's a question. Now we know that we have we know that God is an uncreated being. But even when we say that God is an uncreated being, how can God remain in existence without being created? How can he even come to an existence? If you Google, you will see different explanation by theologians. They use different ways of explaining this concept. So I have tried to put it up this way. I don't know how it is. Could be a little technical, could be a little intellectual. So I'll try to keep it in a very simple way and try to explain. Basically the answer: how is it possible for God to exist in the first place without being created and being a self-existent? So as you know that in physics, okay, there are 10 dimensions which physics talks about. These are what physics talks about. Okay, I'll try to be very simple. The 10 dimensions. The first dimension that we know is length, and what you get out of length is a straight line. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, you take a thread, okay, and you put an ant on that thread. Okay, the ant can move on the thread. It can move in a straight line. It cannot move in any other form. It can only move in the straight line. So the first dimension is what you get is length, and what you get is a straight line. Now imagine you take that ant and put it on your table. Okay, now here the table or the plane is a 2 dimension. So you have length as well as breadth. So your second dimension is breadth or width. What happens is the ant can now move straight, horizontally, vertically, diagonally. Anyhow it can move on that plane of surface, on that surface level. So that is second dimension. But if you put an object on that table of yours, and if the ant has to move, the ant will go around it. Okay, if an object is obstructing the ant, what the ant does is it moves around it. The reason why it moves around it is because ant is at its capacity is at 2 dimension. But imagine you put yourself on a plane, okay, where you can move horizontal, vertical, diagonal. And if there is an object that is obstructing your travel, what you could do is you can either dig a tunnel and come out of that obstruction, out of that sign, or you can jump over and move on to, you can handle that obstacle. So because we are of the higher dimension, we are at the third dimension, so we are able to do that. So as you keep on increasing your dimensions, okay, so first dimension is length, second is width, third dimension is depth. So what you get is an object. Okay, you can object with a mass, you can dig the tunnel, as I said, or you can work out. So that's the third dimension. As I keep increasing, the fourth dimension, which is called as a time, and what you get here is a position in the space-time. If I say I was born in a particular year, so that's my position in space and time. Okay. Now let's say one thing, if I say that all the ICF members gathered, you will say that this statement is incomplete, because it is saying that ICF members gathered, but it doesn't say when they gathered and where they gathered. So without space and time, your statement will become incomplete. So we need space and time to identify our position. Okay. Let's take one example. See, we do our skit, right? Every Sunday school anniversary year, we prepare our skit and we come on that particular day, and that skit is done on the stage. As you sit down to watch that skit, you will see that what is happening is the skit is slowly getting unfolded in front of your eyes. But imagine me, I'm the one who designed the skit. If I am the one who designed the skit, I know at what time the skit will start, what at what time which character will come, what the character will do, and when the character will exit the stage. I know from the beginning to the end because I am the one who designed it, so I know it. But so what is happening is I am outside the time, I'm outside the time and space of that skit. Whereas the audience who is witnessing that skit for the first time, okay, he is within the timeline. So what is happening? I am on a different timeline and they are on a different timeline. So I am outside the timeline in which the audience is sitting because I know the beginning to the end. So this is exactly what happens when somebody is outside our time and space. So God, when we say God is outside our time and space, which means what is unfolding in our eyes at one point in time, God sees what is past, present, and future for us is present continuous tense for God. To give you another example, let's say you are stuck in a traffic. The maximum that you can see is 500 meters ahead or the 500 meters behind. That's all you can see. You're stuck in that traffic and you're limited by time and space. But imagine there is a high rise next outside that on the road, by the side of the road, a high rise, and there is somebody who is on the top floor. That person can look from his balcony and see the entire road in one go. He can see what's way ahead up to 1 kilometers, 2 kilometers in front of you or 2 kilometers behind you. So you don't know what is happening, why is there a traffic jam, what is causing, but the person who is in the high rise can get a larger view because he is outside the time and space in which you are in. Similarly, if a person is on a plane, he can see the whole city at large. You don't even know where are the roadblocks, where the accidents has taken place. But somebody who is on a plane can actually, or on a very higher plane, can always see exactly what is happening. So he has a very higher view. What I'm trying to say is that somebody who is operating in the fourth dimension means somebody who is outside of time and space. So we know that this is a four. So as you keep on increasing the dimension, so I'll quickly go through 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and to just give you an example. I know it's a little intellectual, but I will run it at a high level, and then if you have any questions, I can answer of these dimensions. So that's the fourth dimension. So if you go higher, one step higher, the fifth dimension, what happens in fifth dimension is what you get is probability of all possible alternate universes. What it means is today we have if you toss a coin, you will get only either heads or you will get tails. Imagine a possibility where you get both head and tail. Okay. Now it is difficult for us to imagine because we are constrained. We are at fourth dimension only. And what I'm talking about, fifth dimension, which is very difficult for us to understand. But fifth dimension, as per physics, is when all possible universes are possible. Going to sixth dimension is where all possible universes with same laws, starting point, and conditions are there. So what you get is a multiverse. I will not go too much into it because I don't know how much you are able to understand that. But if you need deep dive, I will go on. So as you keep going above and up, keep moving on from higher dimension. Okay, from the eighth dimension onwards. Okay. See, if you see the angelic beings, all of them are probably on the eighth dimension, which means that they exist in a universe where the laws of physics are different than our universe. And so that's out. So coming to the whole point is, when you are on the 10th dimension, see, I have to say this. I'm just trying to wind up this piece because I'm not sure how much you all are able to understand. So I'll quickly close this out. What happens in the 10th dimension is, when you are in the 10th dimension, anything imaginable is um, possible for somebody who is on the 10th dimension. What it means is, from the scriptures, okay. Now I'll just put this out. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay. So what happens is, we know that, from the scriptures we see that God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Okay. That character, what you are seeing, that is only possible at the 10th dimension. So so it is, in a way, I would say that, somebody who is on the 10th dimension, it is possible for a person, for a being to self exist, being eternal and uncreated. So that's so when it comes to the question of who created God, we know that God is an uncreated, self-existent person. And because why he is self-existent and why he is eternal, uncreated, is because it is possible, because he is operating at a 10th dimensions. Yeah, that's all I want to share. I know it is very difficult for me to just keep saying this again and again without understanding, without knowing how much you are able to understand these things. So I'll stop here, and I'll take any questions that you all have on this thing.
Shiva brother, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, so see, you gave us this is see the not a question, but just what is coming to my mind and listening to you. You gave us these 10 dimensions, saying physics has these 10 dimensions. So my a question that's coming to my mind is, so is physics acknowledging that 10th dimension as God, like the scientists were, or no? What are they just saying? You know what I mean?
That's right. Yes, yes. So they, in physics, there are Christian scientists who acknowledge, but there are equally non-Christian or unbelieving scientists who do not acknowledge these things. I mean, who do not acknowledge God. So what I mentioned is, what I was trying to explain is that, in physics there are 10th dimension. As you keep going higher and higher in your dimensions, the 10th, or the ultimate dimension of physics, which according to them is anything possible. Anybody who is on the 10th dimension can do anything that he imagines, right? So uh, we can understand that God, who is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, who is outside time, space, who can travel between multi-universe, who has knowledge of all the past universes. See, I didn't explain all of these things when I mentioned, because I was not sure how much everybody is able to grasp through it. But if there is anybody who can meet all of these 10 dimensions, that's has to be that that has to be God. And we see those characters coming from in the scriptures. But for physics, there are people who will, they just, they don't believe, they don't want to acknowledge God. So, yeah.
It makes sense. So I was just not sure. Like when you answer my question saying scientists are Christians, as well as you have the non-believing scientists. Like for us, it's like we grew up saying in the beginning was God. For us, there's no question to that, right? So, when you have to, it is good that we get this, feedback, this level of explanation, because now we know, if we are faced, then we can always say, we can compare it in a scientific way and explain if we are faced with that kind of situation. So that's my feedback. That's just what I get from listening to this portion. So just want to thank you for that.
No problem. So we have very great, very prominent scientists like John Lennox. So many of them very powerful Christians, and they are Bible-based, strong believers. Okay, those they substantiate a lot of scientific matter with regard with scriptures and scientists, and they are able to see both the science as well as scriptures, how it is so well um, aligned. But at the same time, we have a lot of, I think this the devil has blinded, even after having so much of evidence, they are blinded to not see, or they intentionally don't want to acknowledge God.
So thank you. I have to leave now. Okay. So thank you so much again.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well then, that's all from my side. Any questions or anything to add? I know I couldn't go much deeper because I was not sure how much everybody's understanding, and I don't want to bombard you with unnecessary information and bore you up. So I'm assuming no questions, no comments. In that case, we can close the class. And if you have any questions, you can leave a voice message or even text in the group, and we can get this answered. So I think with this we will close up the science series, especially with regards to there's one more topic of humanoids and also evolution and intelligent designer, but I think this will be a little too much, so at this point I'll close it. Maybe next in a couple of weeks I will come will deep dive into world religion, and we should be able to go through the world religion. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.